Hey, what's up guys? Today I'm going to be talking about soldier rocket launchers, specifically the original and the stock, and also enabling flipped view models and its effect on the game. Let's talk about flipped view models first, as the topic is rarely discussed in the TF2 realm, at least from what I've seen. For starters, if you go into your advanced options and scroll towards the bottom, you can check a box that flips your view models. Make sure you are not alive when you do this in TF2 or else it will not work. In CSGO, flipping your view models is a fairly common thing. I remember seeing CSGO YouTuber Nato Safix making a video on the topic where he advises players to determine their dominant eye and set the view model accordingly. If you find that your right eye is your most dominant, then you theoretically should play with your view models flipped onto the left side of your screen, as to allow you to have a better view of the map and what's in your view. If your left eye is your most dominant, then you keep the view models normal as opposed to flipping them. However, this isn't for everybody, as for many, the flipped view model is too distracting, or they're used to using the weapon as a point of reference. You also must consider that TF2 and CSGO differ humongously. For one, you can flip your view models in CSGO with binds while alive, while in TF2, Valve took away this ability due to potential abuse. The most important difference between the two games in this context is that several of TF2's weapons are projectile based, while the guns in CSGO are all hit scan other than the grenades. In TF2, projectile weapons such as the rocket launcher and the grenade launcher shoot projectiles at an angle coming out from the right side of your screen by default. However, when you flip your view models, the projectiles come out from the left side of your screen instead. Now, this might seem minor and unimportant, but it can make a world of difference, especially to those accustomed to right-handed view models. Now, for clarity's sake, when I say right-handed view models, I'm referring to the default setting where you have the view model on the right of the screen. This has absolutely nothing to do with being physically right-handed in real life. Playing Demo Man with the grenade launcher specifically, I found that I struggled to predict enemy movement since I'm so used to compensating for grenades coming out of the right side of my screen. When firing at an enemy when my projectiles come out of the left rather than the right, I tend to aim too far to the left side when predicting and compensating for enemy movement, since this is what I've grown used to doing over the years. I don't ever consciously think of this while playing soldier, it's just a habit at this point. If you're a soldier who mainly just goes for splash damage, maybe you've never even noticed this before. Shooting enemies with projectile-based weapons is not the only thing affected by flipped view models. Rocket jumping is as well, and quite significantly too. With the right-handed view model, one typically flicks to the right to rocket jump since the rocket comes down at an angle towards the right. It's also easier to wall jump on walls to your right since it allows you to flick your mouse around way less. If you flip your view models, you'll find it better to flick to the left to rocket jump, and rocket jumping off of walls to your left will be preferable due to rockets coming out of the left giving you less required flick distance when turning to the left compared to turning to the right. If you're super new to rocket jumping and have not built habits yet, you may have no problems using flipped view models. The only problem is it's kind of a right-handed soldier's world. I find many jump maps unfriendly towards those who play with their view models flipped. Some maps are awesome and provide a symmetrical path for those who are playing flipped, but not all choose to do that. The problems don't end on jump maps, but also may carry over to actual gameplay. Many of the game's most popular jumps on the most popular maps are invented by those who do not play with flipped view models, so you may find conventional jumps more challenging depending on which one it is. If at any point you must shoot off a wall that's to your right, you're going to be put at a disadvantage. You also must take blind firing around corners into consideration, for this can be very important for taking out sentries or for just shooting at enemies from a choke point or corner of some kind. With flipped view models, you'll no longer be able to blind fire around a corner from the right. You will have to rely on doing so from the left instead, or by coming out of the corner and exposing yourself a whole lot more. As with rocket jumping, this is an incredibly conditional thing. Some corners will benefit you when your view models are flipped and some will not. Moral of the story is, if it's not broke, don't fix it. If you're already extremely used to playing with your view models normal such as I am, switching to flipped view models will take a ton of practice to get used to and won't really have any significant benefits that are worthwhile in my opinion. If you're new to Soldier or Demo, or don't even play these projectile-based classes at all, maybe try flipping your view models around to see what it's like. Personally, my right eye is dominant, and consciously because of this, I play CSGO flipped, although I remain right-handed in TF2, simply because I'm already used to the right-handed projectile trajectory. And also, the one time I tried flipping my view models for a taste of it, I got a ton of people down in the comments pissed off about it for some reason. Is it really that visually offensive? I thought it was just something new and interesting, god. Now that we've beaten this topic to death, let's move on to the other thing in the title of this video, the original, and how that works into everything. The original was styled after the rocket launcher in Quake using remastered audio from the original game. God damn, the sounds this thing makes are almost justifiable enough alone to use this thing. They are so fucking awesome. It was added back on August 3rd of 2011 as a promotional item for Quake 4, and it shares all the same stats as the stock launcher with one major difference. Rockets fire from the center of your screen in a straight line rather than firing at an angle from the right. This can serve as both a positive and negative attribute depending on what you're talking about. For aiming purposes, the original is much more straightforward when it comes to directly shooting airborne targets. Instead of perhaps aiming slightly to the side to compensate for your rocket's trajectory versus an enemy's movement, you can aim your crosshair directly where you want your rocket to go, and it'll go straight there regardless of how close an enemy is to you. This right here is probably the greatest selling point of the weapon. Although you can become adjusted to aiming slightly to the side to compensate for stock rockets, it's much more straightforward with the original. Another huge selling point of the original is its awesomeness for pogoing and straight wall climbing. Because rockets from the original explode directly under you when aiming straight downward, you won't be sent slightly to the left like with the stock launcher, but instead in a perfect straight line. When climbing a wall that is directly in front of you, all you have to do is shoot directly in front of you, while with the stock launcher you have to aim slightly to the side, which is more challenging to pull off perfectly, especially on pogo jump maps where you must go from pogoing on a flat surface directly to climbing a wall. Despite this, the original does not make every type of jump easier. When rocket jumping with the original, you must flick slightly more to the side to jump as far forward, and rocket jumping across the side of a wall likewise requires greater distance covered from your flicks, since you have to turn slightly further to angle your rockets right. With the right amount of practice, this may not be a problem for you, but as someone who has just about always used the stock, it can be tricky to transition between the two when it comes to performing jumps I've practiced and precisely gotten down. The other major downside of the original is corner peeking, since its rockets do not allow you to shoot blindly around a corner. With the original, one must peek a corner more than a player using the stock launcher, leaving soldiers more vulnerable to sentry fire or damage in general. However, one little upside is how you can peek left corners easier than with the right-handed stock launcher. One slightly weaker but still notable downside with the original is that it is a one of a kind. If you train and master the stock launcher, you can transition over to weapons like the black box with ease, while with the original, that will not be quite the case since no other rocket launchers fire rockets straight from the center of your screen. Another smaller argument is that the original's view model is smaller, but considering you can enable minimized view models or even disable view models completely in some cases, this does not make that large of a difference in my opinion at least. There's other things you can do to fix your rocket launcher view model before resorting to the original based on that notion alone. I wouldn't really say there's a correct choice between the original and the rocket launcher. Weigh the pros and cons of the two and determine what fits your style the most. Feel free to practice around with both of them and see what feels best for you. I personally prefer the stock launcher, while many others prefer the original for perfectly justifiable reasons. As for choosing between right and left-handed view models, remember that there's no significant advantage to having them flipped, at least in my opinion. Just simply choose what is more comfortable for you, taking into consideration jumps you've practiced or plan on learning and the corners of the maps you play. I hope you found this video to be of some use for making the important decision of which of the three ways you can play Soldier in regard to rocket trajectory. If you have any questions, comments, or complaints, please leave them down in the comments below and like this video if you enjoyed it. Also, feel free to subscribe if you're new around here for more videos like this, and check out my other Soldier videos, such as my video on the escape plan and how powerful it is compared to Soldier's alternatives, my video where I compare the gunboats to the shotgun and determine what's best for what situation, and my many other videos that cover different things. Have an awesome rest of your day or night, and peace out. What the fuck? Disconnect taunt spamming? Why?